My word for this episode is reflection.
I love that. Mine is healing.
Good one. Yes.
Yeah, we are going to take this episode to talk about my journey a little bit,
Jess's journey.
Jess's
And
journey.
yes, and I think to start us out, I want to know more about why healing is speaking to you right now for this conversation.
So I have a genetic condition called beta thalassemia. Basically, I don't make the same amount of red blood cells as everyone else, which is interesting seeing as I chose fitness as a profession, already being at a slight disadvantage.
Good point.
Got to prove people wrong. I moved to Florida from Asheville, North Carolina in the beginning of 2022. Let's not talk about that. That's a whole other journey. We'll go
Okay.
on later. But I had to reestablish myself as a patient in order for insurance to continue to cover me. That's what happens oftentimes when you have a genetic condition. You got to, check the boxes. So I went in just to establish myself as a new patient, had my blood draws. Look, I know it looks weird. You don't have to tell me. Lived with it my whole life. You're not going to fix it. But this lovely PA that I met was like, I think you should get iron infusions. And I was like, well, I've been told all my life not to do that.
Do that.
She's like, you're so low that I think it would be good. So back up to about 10 years before, when I was pregnant with my son, I had iron and blood infusions while I was pregnant. And I felt like $1 million. I mean, I came out of there like ready to go, Wonder Woman. So when she said it, I kind of was like, let's go, let's try it. So just to let you guys know, when you have something like I do with beta thalassemia, you look severely anemic, but your stored iron is usually pretty good. So you might not have any available in your blood, but the stuff that's being stored in your liver is usually pretty high, and that is called ferritin. So I started to do iron infusions with this hematologist, and every time I did it, I'd come back. First time felt great. She said it failed. We need to do it again. Second time felt great. It failed. We need to do it again. Third time, not feeling so great. Things feel wrong. I started to look like I was pregnant, like my belly was swollen. And my hair started to fall out, and I started to act a little odd. I was finding the remote controller in the dishwasher and just kind of really odd
Mm.
momentary lapses of judgment. And so went into the third one, and she said it still failed. You got to have a fourth. Had a fourth. Came in after the fourth, and she said it still failed. You need a bone marrow transplant because your bone marrow is dying. So good thing is we can do a bone marrow biopsy in the office. Keep in mind, the infusion center was also in the office. So if we can do this in the office, she started to ask me about my family and proceeded to tell me that my 10-year-old son was going to be my match and that he and I needed to come in together and have our bone marrows tested for this bone marrow transplant. Went from like 0 to 500.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Of course, you want a second opinion. So went to get a second opinion. Second opinion politely told me that my doctor had been poisoning me and that I had extreme iron toxicity. And I ended up in the emergency room with what I thought was a heart attack. And I walked in and was like, I know that I look like a white woman, and I was at the time in my late 30s, but I'm telling you, I'm having a heart attack. And we found out, but through the ER and being hospitalized, that I had my liver, my spleen, my kidneys, my stomach, my lungs, and my heart all had iron deposits in them. We had heavy metal toxicity in most of the organs. It was a long journey, 2 years to come out of that. Every day I had to take this specific drug that essentially goes through your system and just kills everything, because the idea is like to grab as much metal as it can and drag it out of
Right.
your system. So 2 years of recovery. And it was when I really learned, like we talked about in the other episode, that like rest doesn't have to be earned, that you are entitled to rest, and
Mhm.
you're entitled to not feel good, and you're entitled to find subs for your classes or find a way to help your clients that doesn't involve you being physically there. I was lucky enough at the time to be working for a fabulous company who understood what I was going through, and we made lots of pivots and changes in order to make sure I could still continue to work, even though I couldn't breathe on most days.
Right.
All this to say, 2 years later, I finally came back with a clean bill of health. But about 6 months after that, I started experiencing strange symptoms where I thought, oh my goodness, am I pregnant again?
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I was like, my husband's had a vasectomy, so this is going to be really
Yeah.
strange,
Awkward conversation.
I mean, 2 months of these mood swings. I mean, the smell of broccoli would send me into the bathroom. I was waking up with morning sickness. I was just like, where is this coming from? What's going on? I took pregnancy tests, wasn't pregnant. Something else must be happening. It took me 6 months to finally find a doctor who was willing to help me discover what had happened. And no one wanted to touch me because of my previous experience.
Yeah, your history.
Everybody was terrified of testing me or looking further. Everyone wanted to blame it on my previous experience, which is why it's so important to, when I talk about my perimenopause story, I have to talk about the poisoning because everybody blamed it on that. Even though I was like, it's not. I'm telling you, like I was craving pulled pork barbecue sandwiches just like I did when I was pregnant. Like something else is going on. It's got to be hormonal. And it took me 6 months to finally get doctors who would test. And I came back with like just like your story, with like next to nothing in testosterone. Like it was just nothing, gone. It was gone. And I remember texting you and being like,
I was just gonna say, I remember getting that text from you, and I'm like, okay, we have now gotten an answer.
yeah.
One piece of the puzzle.
And you told me you're like, the cream is the way to go. And I did. I tried the cream, guys. But here's the thing, do your follow up tests.
Yes.
So
yes.
important. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm feeling better. I'm just not going to go do those things.
Got to do them.
Go follow up. I followed up. My testosterone had gone up, but not what we were expecting. So I switched to shots, and it was like
it worked
night and day, just drastically different. And I was just so surprised that it took so long to get anybody to look past my obvious issues, right? Okay, look past the beta thalassemia, look past the iron overload, the fact that my organs were poisoned. I know all of that, but none of those organs have anything to do
with what's going on.
And so be your biggest advocate. If you know something is wrong, you feel like something is wrong, don't stop.
And don't accept answer one. And also do the follow-up test, because like I said in a previous episode, my journey looks different than yours. Your journey looks different from somebody else's. And what worked for me, like the testosterone cream, worked fine for me. There's also gels, there's also pellets, there's also shots. Like you didn't respond the same way that I did. And so telling our listeners, like, you got to do your follow-ups. Those are not just to check the box. Those are literally to understand the therapeutic value of the methodology you have been given. And if that's not working, you're not going to get to the point that you need to be at in order to feel better. But that also, like, don't give up. Don't accept that first answer. And I think another thing that you didn't outright say, but indicated is that trust yourself. Trust yourself, because what I hear you saying is you knew all of these things, right? You knew this had nothing to do with your previous poisoning. You knew it had nothing to do with after confirming pregnancy. You knew something was wrong, and you knew it wasn't related to X, Y, and Z. Like you could check those things off and be like, all right, those are not factors. So what is the remaining set of data in front of me, and where do I need to go? So what you've said in that story, Jess, is trust yourself. You know your body. It's like what we say about clients is they are the expert on themselves. So are you. And if you feel something is off in your body, trust it, because you're right. You're not making this up in your head. You know when you don't feel well. Like it's an innate thing. We know when we don't feel well. So don't let somebody else write that off.
It's so true. Trust your gut.
Absolutely.
My gut just kept being like, I was almost having flashbacks of like, no, this is exactly how I felt in the first trimester. Like it almost verbatim of like reliving it. Broccoli just couldn't be cooked in my house. I was having rage. I wasn't just mood swinging. Oh my goodness, the rage. It was road rage, but like constantly.
Right.
And we talk about mood swings, but we don't talk about how fast they happen, right? It's like one sentence and then you are suddenly on the other side.
Yeah. And it's unintentional
100%.
as well. Like it is something that is above or out of your sphere of influence. And it happens so quick. And the various triggers I find fascinating.
Because it's never the same, right? It's never the same of what's going to trigger it. And suddenly you're just like ready to strangle someone with your bare hands.
Jess, I'm curious, like once you got like the testosterone piece figured out,
Mhm.
Were there other pieces that fell into place, or how are you still kind of like unraveling the mystery around what you started to experience?
First off, it comes from finding the right physician. So
Yes.
finding the right person who was willing to run a deep hormonal panel was vital for it. And in running that panel, we were able to actually find some other discrepancies of things that were happening that probably were because of my previous poisoning. When you get a clean bill of health, you just assume that you're back at ground zero and everything gets to start again. If you've been through anything traumatic or a really traumatizing physical experience with your
Yeah.
physical health, you never go back to stage one, but no one ever tells you that. Everyone is just like, you're free, throw the medication away, you're good to go. You're never fully good to go, right? It is always going to be a little bit of a journey. And so when you go through something, just staying on top of being an advocate for yourself so that you can see how your body's going to continue to, again, evolve and adapt as you grow. So we found some other discrepancies that resulted in taking some additional supplementation, changing my self-care routine, making sure that I found healthy outlets for when I didn't feel like I could move. So when I was first diagnosed with the iron overload, my new hematologist, who I had met while in the emergency room, he said, you're going to need three things. You need a library card, you need a streaming service, and you need a therapist. And those three things really did carry me through the next 2 years.
What real talk there.
Right?
And something that is so unconventional in the Western medical world, right?
Simple and
And
sensible.
simple, like you need these three things and it's going to support you
Mm-hmm.
instead of you need $5,000 supplements that only come from this company online. P.S. By the way, use my discount code.
Yeah, exactly.
Such accessible, doable, simple things.
And then when we started through this phase, where I was like, okay, well, I don't have the energy that I'm expected to have. I still can't go at 110% for as long as other people can. So I had to find creative outlets. I had already started to find creative outlets during my poisoning journey, but
Mhm.
then I really had to find some that I could do for long term during this time, this phase of my life. Turning to crafting has been really, really advantageous for me because it's something that you can still do that keeps your mind busy, maybe your hands busy as well, but doesn't keep you in that productivity circle that we can get into sometimes where work takes over and you
Yes.
start to think about how can I serve others and serve others and serve others, and you can kind of put that to the side for a little bit so that you can kind of focus more on whatever your crafting happens to be, whether it's, fabric wise or gardening or cooking or whatever your craft, right,
Right.
is, has been so, so helpful during this perimenopausal journey of like, there are just going to be some days where I don't want to go roller skate my 3 miles. There are going to be some days where it's more about spending time in my garden than it is about getting my heart rate up to a certain level.
And I think another thing about that approach, though you didn't say it outright, again, it's intimated, is the mental fitness, the brain fitness piece of that, which is something that we need to be mindful of as we go through these phases of life, is keeping the brain sharp, keeping it engaged, keeping it focused on something that not only challenges it, but like you said, provides an avenue of self-care that maybe you overlooked in the past because we've so often defined like self-care as coming from balanced nutrition and movement. And that's such a myopic view of what it means to care for yourself and choose yourself and serve yourself. There are so many other ways to do that that are equally as important to eating well and moving for joy. So I think that's really important.
And that leads me into the thing that I'm over for this episode. What am I over? I am over the idea that self care is a spa day. I'm over that.
Yes.
I'm done. That's not self care. Self care cannot happen when you burn out. That's not self care at that point. That is CPR.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's resuscitation is what that.
Absolutely. That's not self care. We keep being like, oh, you need self care? Have a spa day. When usually what happens to me if I have a spa day is I'm so overwhelmed by the end of the spa day with what I have to do when I get back home that it's not even worth doing the spa day.
Exactly.
right? Like just builds up. Instead, like throughout this journey since 2022 of like changing my daily activities to not be focused so much on productivity from a work perspective. It's instead of like, okay, how am I going to fit self-care in today?
Mhm.
And let's be honest, there's going to be days when it's not fitness. Maybe you have an injury, right? There are going to be days when you can't exercise, and if that was your form there, that was the only way that you thought of self-care, then you're in a world of trouble. So finding ways that you can take care of yourself every single day
Mhm.
is,
I
I
love
think, vital. All right, what are you over?
to, I think, parallel that. I am over the notion that self-care is selfish.
Oh, yeah.
I'm over that. Like, that is garbage. It's kind of like, to use a real, like, cliche, cheesy sort of analogy here, like put on your oxygen mask before assisting others while you're on the aircraft. Self-care is not selfish. It's self-preservation. It is self-support. It is healing. And it is honestly a training modality. If you want to make progress physically, mentally, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, self-care is a non-negotiable piece, a non-negotiable training variable.
And you know
Selfish.
what? Showers are not self-care. I'm over that too.
No, yeah, no. I mean,
That's basic hygiene.
yeah, that's a public service is what that is. Like, we all need to do it. That's not
Yeah.
self-care.
It's not, and it's not selfish either. So
No.
that was our self-care talk for today. Thank you for
Thanks for
coming to our
coming to
TED
our
Talk.
TED.
Make sure you shower when you feel like you need to shower. That's
Absolutely
that
do
is
it.
the story here. Because that's the other thing going through midlife. I don't, and then we'll wrap it up because we have to be done with this episode. But man, my smells started to change. Not just how I smelled
Yes.
things, but my own personal smell. That was another one where I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, like one perfume that I use no longer smells the same way and I can't stand it anymore. And I'm like, here, somebody else have it.
Yeah.
I don't
Crazy
like
thing.
it. Yeah, 100%. I'm with you.
Well, thank you guys again for joining and being here for Fit and Flustered. We are excited to continue this journey. We're going to be bringing on some guests that are going to talk about their own health journeys or how they've helped their clients through their own health journeys, whether it's perimenopause or going through some other changes in their life. So please come back and have fun with us. And we hope that you're finding some crossover, some connectivity, some ways that you are feeling maybe a little less alone and a little bit more supported through your own journey.
Absolutely. And we do encourage you to reach out to us, connect with us, share your story, share your thoughts, and tell us what you're over.
Yeah. Can't wait to find out what you're over. Well, thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.